to know what it's like to be sharing a space with you. Fall on me with open arms. Fall on me from where you are.
This is a special episode of Laura Kane After Dark. We're with Erik Rimmer and Linda Zerkis. And hello, you guys. Hello, you guys.
Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you guys too. And this is a very special edition because it's the holidays, and you know, people lose loved ones all the time. But for some reason, during the holidays, it seems to be a lot more tough, more intense, because you got all this like happiness and joy around you, and you're not feeling that way at all.
The internal struggle. Yeah.
So Erik lost his mom this week.
Yep.
Last year, his first Christmas without his mom, and that is that's the toughest year. Is the first year, the firsts of everything. Her first birthday. Your first birthday, first any kind of holiday that she was especially fond of, and I'm sure Christmas was probably one of her biggest ones.
She loved Christmas. It was her absolute favorite. Yeah.
Well, why don't you tell us about, before you read your letter, he has a letter he wants to read about his mom, to his mom.
On the anniversary.
And well, tell us about what was your life like growing up?
Take us through your childhood.
Well, we talked on our last podcast about what were our favorite memories, and we all said our childhood. And I had a great, great childhood. My parents were married until my dad passed away. And so they had been married for about 40 years. And we never had... my mom was a cop until she got pregnant with me, and then she retired from the force and was always home. We always had food on the table, and had a great, great childhood. And she did her job. She was a mom first, and then as I got older, and she taught me and my sibling everything that we needed to know, like, work hard, respect people. And so about in 2009, I think it was 2008, she had been getting tremors, and we didn't know what it was. And she went in and found out that she had Parkinson's disease. And so she was very, very scared. And as she got older, she passed away when she was 80. So I took her to every doctor's appointment, every specialist, everything. And they put her on one medication after another. And some of it worked, some of it didn't. And then in about 2000 and maybe late 2015, she started getting really odd. And I was always very, very close to my mom, very close to her. I actually wrote about her a lot on my Facebook. And friends would actually want to come to dinner with us to see if she really said all the things that she would say. And so I was always typing when we were at dinner, typing into my phone, and she'd be all, "Are you scrapbooking?" Because she didn't know what Facebook was. So, but she was having problems with her vision, and she had kind of stopped eating, and I had to tell her, I don't want you to drive anymore. So I bought her a new car, and within the first week, she had scratched the fender and stuff because she just got too nervous to drive. And at night, she would, around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, she would start getting very panicky and very worried and very nervous. And there's something called sundowner syndrome that sometimes affects people with Parkinson's.
Yeah.
And so I would have to spend the night at her house all the time. And so at a certain point, I thought, well, I've got to look for something for her, because I was so afraid. I'd gone away on business, and I'd pre-done all of her meals. So I said, all you have to do, Mom, is heat them up. And I came back about 5 days later. She hadn't eaten anything. And so it was at that point that my brother, I had asked her to come and live with me. And I said, I'll just get a bigger place, and, you can have your own room and your own bathroom. And she didn't want to live downtown, because I lived downtown at the time, and she didn't want to live down there. So my brother said, packed her bags and said, you're coming to live with me and my wife. And she didn't want to do it. And I said, look, try it. If you don't like it, we'll figure something out. She wanted to stay in her house. So in the interim, I found a care facility, and took her to see it, and she liked it. And she had fallen at my brother's, and so we had to put her in there, because we just couldn't. It was the last thing anybody ever wants to do to a parent is put them in a care facility.
Right.
This one was fantastic, and if anybody wants information on it, if they have a parent or a loved one that is in need of that, you can direct message me, and I'll give you the information. They're here in San Diego, and they were fantastic. They were absolutely lovely and caring, and
Or go to Laura Kane AD@gmail, and I'll get it to you.
yeah, and we can get it that way. So within days of putting her in the care facility, she went even further down. So we put her in the day after Thanksgiving. And by Christmas, I was white knuckling it. I thought she's not going to make it to see Christmas. And so...
From the Parkinson's?
No, it was something else. And I had taken her to every specialist. They ran MRIs and everything. What's the other one? The
CAT scan.
CAT scan.
Yeah.
They couldn't find anything. And she kept saying, I can't see. And all of a sudden her arms started to kind of get like a retract. So it looked like they were just getting gnarled, and she couldn't, all on the left side, everything was happening on the left-hand side. So I thought maybe she had a stroke. And so I thought, she's not going to make it to see Christmas. Mm-hmm. So all she wanted to do was go home. So I went to her house and redid everything for Christmas. Put the tree up, put the lights up, bought presents, put everything up, and then we took her there after a church service, and let her have I was sure she wasn't going to make it to see New Year's. And so we did that. Right after that, I had a weird feeling. I was at work, and I called the facility that she was at, and they said that they had just rushed her to the hospital. Oh, no. And so I went over there, and it turns out that she had an extremely aggressive brain tumor.
Oh, God.
And I was furious, because I said, how did no one see this? How did this get missed? We had done everything possible.
And she had some really good faults where she was pretty maimed. Remember, she had some...
Yeah, she fell at my brother's really bad.
Yeah.
And just started going downhill, to the point where she couldn't walk anymore. And so we called in a specialist, and he said, she went in on January, I believe it was the 3rd, And by the 5th, by the time the specialist got in and we saw my mom and ran tests on her and talked to us, the tumor had grown. So it was at the right side of her brainstem. And so that's why it was affecting everything on the left-hand side. And so he said, with as frail as she is and her age, she has an 85% chance of not making it. And I was like, well, that's a horrible option.
Scenario,
there's what are we going to do?
Yeah.
So he said, I'm confident that I can get it because it's contained. But she might not make it through the surgery. So, we talked to my mom, and I think this is why I'm very, very so pro-woman, is because my mom was always tough. Like, my dad never told her what to do. Like, she wasn't at the mercy of a man. She was super independent. If she wanted to do something, my dad was like, I don't want to do it. She'd be like, peace out, I'm going to go do it. Mm-hmm. And so she said, well, I want to get this out. I want to be around for the grandkids. I want to be around for my kids. So we were like, okay. So she had the operation on the 6th of January, and she came through it fine. The doctor said she was a rock star. She made it through just fine. So she went through rehab and everything. And the interesting thing is that she came out, and when we were allowed to see her, which was very, very late that night, when I walked in, they said, you must be Erik. And I said, well, yeah. And they said, you're all she's talking about. Mm. So... and
she had her sense of humor when she came out.
She did.
Right away.
She did.
Yeah.
She said, you're my son, and your birthday is January 8th. And I thought, you got to be kidding me. She couldn't remember what she had for breakfast before the surgery. Like, it was insane. So my mom, who had gone from this rapidly declining little old lady, was suddenly back in her game and remembered everything and was sharp as a tack within days of having the surgery. So the surgeon said there is cancer cells that are kind of dusting the area of the brain, but we're going to do radiation. She can't do both because it would kill her. So she did radiation and she did a chemo pill, and she seemed to really rally. And within 3 months, we were told that the cancer was completely back. Mm. So it had been put at bay for a few months, but it was so aggressive that it came back even faster than they thought it would ever. So they gave her a year at that point, and so every night I would go in. And
what month was this?
So she had the surgery in January, so it was probably March. So between my brother and his wife and I, we kind of did the rounds. So I would go after work every single night and sit by her bed, and I would read to her, and we would play memory games and stuff to kind of help. And so as it got... Did you have a question?
No, I was just going to say, like, from January to when the time actually happened, she was up and down. Like,
yeah.
She was going to be okay,
yeah.
And then she would fall back, and then she'd be okay, yeah.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it depended on how she was doing after the treatment and things like that. So around November, I had come in, and I had noticed that every night when I would leave, I would say, I love you to the moon and back. And she would say, drive safe. And as November kind of started to hit, I noticed that there was a lot more just